We knew we had a whiskey tour to go on, and isn't there that
Oh.
saying of donuts before whiskey could be risky?
Oh, I don't know.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Wandering Works for Us. We are Shelley and Beth, a married couple living in Portugal and traveling the world. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast, Wandering Works for Us. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Beth.
And today we have a special guest.
Yes, we do.
We have Julie with us.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Yay! So today's podcast, we're going to go to Dublin, Ireland, which is where Julie and I went, a couple weeks ago? The beginning of May, the middle of May?
Middle of May.
When was it?
May the 10th.
May 10th. May 10th through the 20th, that's right. And we spent 10 glorious days on the island.
And no rain.
And no rain! It was fantastic. But that's not how we originally planned this trip, was it?
No, it was not.
What happened?
Well, I hurt my knee.
Yeah.
And I'm currently moving about the speed of a turtle. And
Just putting it nicely.
thank you very much.
Just kidding. You move a little faster than a turtle. Just a little bit.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of walking on a trip like this. Things like hiking up to the trail for the Cliffs of Moher. And we just decided that it was best if I didn't go.
There's no way you could have done this trip and been fine. No. With the pain that you were in to begin with anyway.
Right.
So we had to make some adjustments before our trip. And so we decided that it would just be a BFF trip. So Julie, you were coming anyway. We were going to meet Julie in Ireland and do the three of us. And Beth was going to drive us around, but then she didn't come, so we had to drive ourselves. And that's a whole fun story that we'll talk about later. But then Sheila came to visit you.
Yes.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi, Sheila.
And so you got to spend 10 days with your best friend. I got to spend 10 days with my best friend.
It all worked out.
All worked out very well.
It really did. I'm thinking we might need to do it again.
So today we're just going to talk about Dublin. But on our trip, we also did Dingle and Galway. And that'll be a whole different podcast because I don't think we could do everything we wanted to do on just this one.
Yeah.
It's too much.
And the reason I'm here, even though I didn't go, is because I've been to Ireland a couple of times and done some of these things. So yes. I'm going to chime in when appropriate.
So, Julie.
Yes.
What did you think about Dublin?
Oh, I liked it. It was wonderful. And just to mention, Beth did plan this whole trip. So
yes,
she was with us in spirit every step of the way.
Aww.
Yeah, especially when we had questions about things.
Like, where are we staying tonight?
Yeah. We travel is Beth plans the trip and I show up with my passport. Well, this time I had to be in charge and it was...
Yeah.
Yeah,
honey, you don't even carry your own passport. I carry it.
That's true.
And I helped.
I arrived the night before you did. So in the morning, when I got up, I got time to walk around Dublin. And we stayed in the Premier Inn that was in the Liberties section of town, which, sidebar, I really like those Premier Inns. Did you like it?
I did. It was great.
Our friends Knock and Allen had turned us on to them when we were going to London. And we've now used them several times.
Yeah.
Really like those hotels.
They're all over Europe.
But one of the things that I really liked most about Dublin is it was very walkable and easy to get around.
Absolutely. Yeah. Much less hilly than Porto or Lisbon and even Edinburgh. I mean, it was not the cobblestone hills of Edinburgh.
It was not.
Yeah.
I appreciated every walkway. While they did have cobblestones, they also had flat areas for like stroller, wheelchair, whatever. And I didn't remember seeing that elsewhere, but they probably had it too. But
it was much more accessible than anywhere here in Portugal that I've seen.
And
Definitely.
let's not forget the pubs everywhere.
Oh, yes, that was very nice.
Music and the buskers on the street. It was charming and happy. It just had a really uplifting feel.
I'd go back.
I would totally go back.
Taxis were very easy to get. We used an app that the hotel check-in lady had told me about.
No.
And so it was very easy to get a taxi. We did not take public transportation any because we basically would just walk from one place to another. It's one of those cities that is, it's full of culture, but at the same time, it feels like, to me, any other city that we've been in Europe.
Felt more modern to me, a couple places that I've been, but yeah, very walkable. And that was wonderful because we could go and do whatever we wanted to do and just not huffing and puffing up stairs or anything crazy.
See Lisbon.
Yeah, you got to train for Lisbon, man. So the first day, I got to walk around a bit before I met you at the airport. And so where we stayed, it was easy to walk up to St. Patrick's Cathedral. I did not go in. And I walked around Christchurch, which Beth has been inside of, but I did not go inside of. The odd thing about her not being on a trip is I didn't go into any church. None.
I hope you enjoyed that. It won't happen again.
From outside, though, the architecture was inspiring and beautiful. And even a couple places we either heard bells or they had music in the garden area, which was just very peaceful and sweet.
It was really nice.
Yeah, I hate you guys didn't go in there. It is, of course, it's a cathedral, so it's a beautiful, soaring arches and stained glass and all of that. The thing for me about Christchurch is it's about 1,000 years old, and it has the original tile floors through the entire thing. And it's not just, and remember, we live in Portugal where tile is everywhere. We see beautiful tile all the time.
Old churches are everywhere too.
Yeah, true that. But this is a smorgasbord of patterns. It sticks to the same color palette, but it's multiple colors. Mm-hmm. And one, like the chapel, will just butt up to the aisle and it's a totally different pattern. And it's about 1,000 years old. It's incredible. I have many pictures of the floor.
Beautiful church.
Which you could include in the blog when you do this.
Yeah, I think I have quite a few pictures because I have done a Dublin blog, but we definitely updated it after this trip. And so after I walked around a bit, I went to the airport and picked Julie up. Well, actually, I just met her there and we got a taxi. But then I had to keep her awake because, what was it, a 12-hour trip or something like that you were coming from?
Left about 8:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from Raleigh, North Carolina, and arrived at around 11 a.m. in Dublin.
Yeah.
That next morning. I do tend to rest on the plane, but I don't sleep much. So jet lag is real, but what I've learned from Knock and Alan, of course, is just don't stop moving. Shout out to the travelers. Just keep going. And I was going to try to do that again. But once we got to the hotel, I said, I just need 30 minutes. Please let me lay down. I know this could be bad, but I'm hoping it's just a little power nap. And so I did have that reset and set my alarm. And Shelley came and got me. She's like, get up. And I was like, I'm awake. And of course, it took me another half hour to really wake up. But then once we got going, I'm not sure what time we went to bed that night. The sun stays out till 9:30, so it was easy to stay.
No, it was later. It was 10:30 before the sun would set. Yeah, it was. Yeah, we felt kind of silly going to bed. What we thought might be too early, but it was 9:30, 10 o'clock at night.
But those Premier Inns have the wonderful blackout curtains.
Yes, they do. Thank you, Premier Inn, for that.
Thank you. That was great.
First thing we did was we went to a nearby pub and had some lunch because, of course, I was starving by then anyway. And then we took the Trinity College tour. And I wanted to do this tour because on your first trip with Eli, or your second trip with Eli, you did it, and when you described it, it sounded like something I really wanted to check out.
Your tour guide, Matt, he was a graduate student, right?
Yes, he was a graduate student. He was a chemistry student.
He was excellent.
He was.
And even the other guides before he arrived were bragging on him, saying, "Oh, he's the best. You're going to love it." So he's a good storyteller and knew his stuff. Shout out to Matt. Hey.
What did you like about this tour the most?
This Trinity College tour and Book of Kells experience was one of the highlights of the trip for me. I loved learning all about the college and the significant people who had attended, and just to know that it's an active college. There were students rambling around. It was after final exams, so I guess they were grad students, but we got to see a cricket match in progress, and
yeah, that was cool.
Other people wandering around, but it was great. I enjoyed all the beautiful, again, we saw tiles and marble and interesting things on the campus that I didn't expect. The buildings are just beautiful and lots of different architectural elements to inspire.
They don't really take you into any of the buildings except the geography building. And they take you in so you could see because the architecture in that place was incredible. It had a lot of Arabic influences there. Inside, they also had 2 skeletons of bull deer or some
Irish deer,
giant.
and they were over 11,000 years old.
What kind of deer?
They're called Irish deer.
Irish deer, okay. Yeah.
And the antlers on the male looked more like a moose than separated like a deer. But of course, those were used for attracting the females. They also had the female skeleton in there.
Oh, I like his antlers.
Yeah. Usually those would be in a museum, but it was at the college. So that was really cool. Again, preserved in peat bogs.
Yeah, we learned something very valuable, that if you need to get rid of something, like, say, a body, don't put it in a peat bog.
Yeah, it lasts forever.
Yeah, it preserves it really too well.
Very well.
But the thing that I like, I mean, the tour was really cool, but then after that, you do the whole sort of thing. So we got to go to the long room, which is the Trinity College library. That has, I don't know how many thousands of volumes of really old books in there. So when you went 3 years ago? 3 years ago, you told me that they were getting ready to shut down the library to do the work on it.
That's right. I went right before that.
And then it's 3 years later, and they still haven't done the work on it, but they have taken some of the volumes out of the library. And our tour guide said, well, this is the thing that makes the university the most money, is the tourism that comes through the long room. But it was incredible. I could have sat in there for hours. And before you go in to the long room, you go through to see the Book of Kells. And it was a museum, right? You walk into this room and they have a lot of the pages that are blown up on the walls that you can see. And so you get a little history and some explanation about the Book of Kells through there. It's a self-guided tour. Our tour guide didn't take us through there. And then you walk in and then you get to see the actual Book of Kells, which is over 1,000-year-old book.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what it is.
Isn't it Psalms, or am I wrong on that?
There's some of the Psalms in it, yeah.
And what you guys saw is an updated, more of, I think they're calling it an immersive experience or something. And that was not there when I went. So I saw sort of backlit panels with blown up pieces of it and some of the story. All on these sort of almost like trade show panels, kind of thing. And then the Book of Kells.
That's the same thing we saw. I
and
think.
then that was it.
Yeah. And then you went to the long room.
And then we went to the long room. But you saw more than that.
Oh, well, we did the immersive experience after that.
Yeah.
When we got into the long room, they have a lot of art on display in the room now. And one of the things that is, it takes your breath away when you walk into the door, was the giant world that was on display.
It's an art installation called Gaia. can't recall the artist.
Luke Jerem.
And it's huge, and I think it just so suited the space. It just felt like it was supposed to be there, and it's just very subtly rotating. It's an inflatable large piece, and it's created by photos from NASA of the Earth. And I think it's beautiful, and it's just being in that room was just awe-inspiring. You could just sit there for hours. And I jokingly said you could just feel the knowledge just dripping down. And that's the truth. The whole vibe was just this rich and take your breath away. It just was wonderful feeling in
Yeah,
there.
it by the way has 200,000 volumes normally.
Oh, the
when it's
library,
full.
yes.
It started because they had the right to get a free copy of every book published in Britain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beth, I think since they anticipated that to be closed, I think that immersive multimedia type of presentation was there to kind of show you what that long room was, and books were flying around it. The immersive digital experiences we had both there and later on at Jameson were top quality. I mean, and I've seen a lot of multimedia, and it was engaging, wasn't cheesy at all. It was really fun, and I think all ages would have enjoyed that. But yeah, the Book of Kells is always, I've seen it once before, and it's always like, well, which spread are we going to get this time? And of course, it was very beautiful, illuminated manuscripts when we walked through. And they were projected on the wall, and all the details about the little animals and everything. But of course, then you get in and you see this, you're expecting an elaborate, illuminated letter, and it was not that. So it just had a couple little things. And so the actual book was a little bit underwhelming because of the spread that was there that we were viewing compared to all the really highly illustrative pieces that we'd just seen. But it was cool.
I felt the same way. Ours was like that, but they turn the page every day. So it's totally luck of the draw, you know.
You have to go every day to see every page. That could get expensive.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you're lucky if you get there and it's the beginning of the next chapter and it has all of
the big one thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool. But they also have the harp that is supposedly the first harp, or one
The
that
Brian Boru, I think. Boru harp.
the Brian Boru harp in there, and that's the one that like the Guinness and the Ryanair logos are designed after.
It's the oldest one in Ireland.
It's the oldest harp in Ireland, and they had that there. And they also had panels up that had videos, and they would talk about many of the Irish authors that were in the library, and they also had videos explaining or showing how they were restoring some of the books.
Yeah, my understanding is they are restoring every single volume before they put it back.
Can you imagine how long that's going to take?
Yeah.
No, but what a wonderful resource to preserve.
Yes, totally.
I had forgotten this until I started looking at it. It has one of the few remaining copies of the 1916 proclamation of the Irish Republic.
Oh, yeah, we saw that.
We did see that.
We did see that.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about the proclamation and the revolution that was there.
Many copies left, and they have one of them.
Yeah, that was definitely there too. So, highly recommend Trinity College, long room, even the immersive experiences. The talking bust were so incredibly cool.
Yeah, they didn't have those when I was there.
Yeah, because you know there are busts of authors that are lined in the long room.
Uh-huh.
Well, they've taken these, taken replicas basically and put them inside this immersive experience, and they've automated them so they talk.
Oh.
And it's not only do you see their lips move, but their facial expressions.
Oh, cool.
It was creepy at first, but it was real. I mean, you were mesmerized.
That was one of the coolest things I had to share with my sister because she works with museums and exhibits and things. I said, this is fantastic. And it wasn't even, it was a solid bust. Like Shelley said, it wasn't just the eyes and the lips. It was the subtle muscles in the cheek is what threw me. I was like, this is real. What is happening? And then I studied it, and it's a projection of shadow on these beautiful white shiny busts. And it really looks like they're talking and alive, and not that uncanny valley thing. It's pretty darn realistic.
That's cool.
Very cool. And then after we finished our Trinity book tour, we stepped out and walked down Grafton Street. It's a shopping district.
Mm-hmm.
Any Nancy Griffith fans out there know there's a song called Grafton Street.
Yes.
And so we were walking down through there, and basically we were looking for a bathroom because I missed it. Wherever we were in the long room book of Kells, I missed it. And so we were looking for a bathroom and maybe something to drink. And we ended up at the Duke, which is a pub right off of Grafton Street. During that period of time, we were there about, 5 o'clock maybe? We had got maybe 5:30. It was right in between where I guess the cafes and the pubs kind of switch over to one another maybe. And so all the cafes and the juice shops and little lunch places were closing every time we tried to walk in, but the pubs were open. So we popped in there and had a nice beer and some chicken wings.
And they were good.
Happened. Yes, they were. They were really good. And that happens to be where if you take the literary pub tour, which is something I want to do if we go back, that's where it starts. So somebody famous that went to Trinity College, it could be a number of people, probably drank in the Duke.
Mm-hmm.
And I did too.
Too bad it's not called the Tar Heel.
Well, yeah.
Go
I had to bring it up, didn't you? That was the end of our first day. And then our second day in Dublin, after we had a good night's sleep and we had a good breakfast at the Two Pups Cafe.
Yes.
Which I had the weirdest French toast I've ever had.
Why was it weird?
It had a cheese sauce. Do you remember what kind of cheese? Was it bechamel cheese sauce?
Something like that. Yes.
It was, instead of syrup, on it, it was the French toast, but then it was surrounded in a cheese. It tasted like cheesy grits. But it was good, but it was like I was not expecting that.
You had to get over it being French toast and just enjoy.
And then I ate. I was able to eat it because at first I was like, "This is weird."
Was it sweet? Was this French sweet? No. Okay.
It was not sweet at all.
Yeah,
but it was yummy.
I think
I enjoyed it. And then we decided to do the hop on, hop off bus.
Mm-hmm.
We took the green tour because the lady at the hotel said it was the best one. Plus, it actually picked up in front of our hotel.
Oh, that's good.
Now, the weird thing is, even though it did that, we never got off or got on at our hotel. We jumped on somewhere else. So I think we jumped on at St. Patrick's Cathedral and then rode around so we could get a feel of what the city was like, how far out we could go, maybe something else we wanted to check out. I think the whole tour took an hour and a half if you stay on there. Does that sound right?
An hour and a half, hour and 45.
And so as we rode around, when you're on the other side of the lift, he told us to get off at stop 25 and cross the bridge. He said, it's going to take me another 25 minutes to get into the Temple Bar area, if that's where you want to go. And the Temple Bar area is a very touristy area, but it used to be one of the poorest parts of Dublin, but it kind of got redone. And so it became a very popular place for people to go drink because there are lots of bars and restaurants and things down there. But Temple Bar is one of the most famous. It's old, it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I was told by the lady at the hotel, because she was a wealth of knowledge, she said, go in, take your pictures, and then go 2 blocks over and have a beer because it's going to be €5 cheaper to do that. Mm-hmm. So that's what we did. But there's also a webcam outside the Temple Bar area.
I missed you.
Yes. And so we tried to get Beth or Carrie or somebody to, watch us on the webcam while we were standing out there waving. And so what we ended up doing is I pulled it up on my phone and I could see us. And then we look up and we wave at the webcam and I take a picture, a screenshot of us doing it because it has maybe like a 10-second delay. So we were able to do it, and then I looked down and then I took a screenshot.
That was fun.
That was pretty cool.
That was cool. Sorry, it was a hopping area. Lots of people down there, lots of young people. Yeah.
Lots of tourists.
Yeah.
It was a touristy area, but it was pretty cool. A group of people came through afterwards and waved at the webcam. Also, kind of did a little choreographed dance or something right in front of it. It was kind of cute.
And then you saw a North Carolina institution.
Yes, we did. Felt a little bit of, home there with us.
Did you have one?
No, we didn't go in.
Tell us what you saw, Julie.
Oh, it was a beacon of hot and now. It was Winston-Salem's own Krispy Kreme donuts.
Right.
We had to make a selfie out in front of that because
I would have had one.
We didn't go in.
the timing of that Krispy Kreme was we knew we had a whiskey tour to go on. And isn't there that saying of donuts before whiskey could be risky?
Oh, I don't know.
It's possible.
It should be if it's not.
So we probably shouldn't have had those donuts.
No.
Yeah. So that was probably a good move all the way around because we got our money's worth at the Jameson Tour.
Yes, we did. So that afternoon, we scheduled the Jameson Tour. That was incredible. You've done the Jameson Tour while you were there, too.
Yes, I did. And you did the same tour that I did.
I think we did, yes.
Yeah.
We arrived and they, do your tickets and everything, and you get to go up and have a drink first. So you get a choice of a cocktail. They had two. One of them was Jameson's and ginger ale. And then you can just get a straight up Jameson's, too, if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But while you're taking the tour, they let you carry your drink around.
Yes.
Oh, they've changed that slightly because when I went, you did the tour first, and then you came back into that big bar area and picked your free cocktail.
Oh, they had a place upstairs that you went, and they had a little bar up there.
Cool.
With a little assembly line. It's like, drop your ticket here and get your drink.
Oh,
Yep.
love it.
The worst part of that tour was that there were people who lived 20 minutes away from me there.
Oh, dear.
There was a family from Cary, North Carolina,
Oh, no.
on our tour. And that was great. I hope they have a wonderful time. But that was one of the things of my highlights of the Ireland trip was just to sit and listen to Irish voices and hear them speak. And everywhere we went was American, English, voices.
There were a lot of American tourists.
Yeah.
You didn't get far out into the country enough.
We went all the way to Dingle, and there was nothing but Americans in Dingle.
Well, that's you needed to be in smaller towns.
Apparently, we needed to be in much, much smaller towns. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. And so the Jameson tour, we're getting a little off topic, but the Jameson tour was really cool because, like Julie said, it was very immersive.
Mm-hmm.
You had a tour guide that took you into this little room, and they had this multimedia presentation that he did. And the funny thing was, I was trying to figure out, did he have like a foot pedal, or was somebody conducting it somewhere, or did he have a remote? Because he'd move his hands over the table really dramatically and change the slides out.
Is that the one where you were all standing in a circle, kind of a step up above him?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, yeah.
It was before that. It was in what I just like to call the chemistry room, where we had all of these little four people standing tables that had the malted stuff, the scent.
Oh, yes.
I can't remember what the scents were, but we could smell. It was very immersive. We could smell the different smells, and I'm like, oh yes, I taste that in the whiskey. And he told us why and how those are achieved. And then we looked at the malted grain versus the unmalted grain, or then some other things. It felt really potion-y. And the lighting really did contribute, because the room that you're talking about, Beth, with the dramatic lighting, it looked like like we're on the Enterprise or something. But that's where we did our tasting of the 3 different whiskeys, which was cool. But yeah, that multimedia presentation, it wasn't just slides. It was all over the wall. And so it didn't look like a slideshow. And it went through the whole process of how they make the whiskey and why it's unique, and very, very cool.
There was actually 3 rooms we were in.
Mm-hmm.
So the first room we go in is a circle, and we're up on like a little thing, and he does the history of Jameson. So he talks about his wife and buying the land and all of the stuff. And then you go into that other room where there's another presentation where they tell you about how the whiskey's made. And then you go into the third room that also has a circle, and you're up on a thing, just like the first one, but it's not the same room, I don't think. And that's where we did the tasting in there. And of course, they lead you out through the gift shop.
Of course.
So you can buy what you just tasted.
Of course they did.
Yes.
But they also told us two important things. Number one, the amount of whiskey that you would be drinking in that tour would put you over the legal limit. Which I would agree with, because I was a little tipsy when I left. Because the drink that we started with and then the tasting of the three, we had a good amount of whiskey.
Would you say you were pleasantly sauced?
No, I was not at that point yet.
Okay.
No,
Just
I was
sauced enough to part with your money.
Yeah, exactly. I was just sauced enough to want some more. She was sauced enough to be like, well, I'm buying this bottle and I need these bottles and I'm taking this bag. And I was like, ooh, chocolate bars. They got chocolate bars.
What was the second important thing?
Expensive.
That they are going to stop shipping to the United States.
Why?
He actually did not give a reason. I would make an assumption and say it has something to do with tariffs, but that was not said in the tour or implied in any way. They just said that if you're an American and you're here, buy what you want, because they're going to soon stop shipping to America.
And so Julie did.
Yes. She bought what she wanted.
I bought what ended up to be probably between 20 and 30 pounds of liquor.
Well done, Julie.
It's heavy. I mean, glass is heavy. Obviously, the liquid's heavy, but worth it. Every penny. Yes. Would do it again.
And if you come visit us, you can buy Jamesons if you want some more.
Exactly.
Yes. Although I've been finding it hard lately to find Jameson Orange, and I'm not sure why.
That's a seasonal thing. We had the same deal last year where we couldn't find it, and then there was a bunch of it all at one time.
Well, it's summer. It's time to do it.
Well, you want me to make a phone call?
Would you please?
Okay.
We didn't try the orange. We tried the triple distilled, the regular original, and the black barrel. And that was my favorite. I ended up getting a big bottle of the black barrel.
You need to look for, well, if there's any still in the United States, look for the stout edition. They have aged it in stout barrels. And oh my word. And the orange is excellent.
I like the orange a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's smoother to me, yeah. It's fruity and it's citrusy. It's summertime.
Jameson Orange and Ginger Ale.
Yummy. That's a beach drink.
So that was pretty much the end of our day. We had to hop a taxi back to our hotel because we had 20 to 30 pounds of liquor that we needed to store. We couldn't walk around Dublin with it. We couldn't walk around drinking it either, so we needed to drop it off. And then we ended up having dinner at Devitt's bar, which was in walking distance to us. That was a really neat bar because I had never seen this before, and it might be common in a lot of British or Irish, Scottish bars, where they have these cabinets that are locked up, and patrons can either own a box or rent a box, and they can put their own whiskey bottles or whatever in there. And so we were in a room where they had like this whole wall of boxes.
Yeah.
And it made me just wonder, like, how do you get one of those? And
well,
can you put anything in it?
You pay for it. You buy an annual
membership. Like that. Okay.
You get the box, you put it in there, and obviously if you're doing that, it's your regular place.
And I wonder if you have to buy the bottle from the bar. Can you bring your own?
I don't know the answer to that.
Questions I have for next time we go.
My mom said they have that here in the U.S. at the country clubs and stuff. It's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Because when I showed it to her, she was like, "Oh, I know what that is." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. It's a prestige thing, I guess. So that's your place, and you're gonna drink your stuff when you go there."
I haven't been in fancy enough bars to know.
I was just about to say, we're not high class enough to have had a lot of experience with that.
And way too many dive bars. I was eating fancy that night. Not really. I had the Guinness stew, which was really good. Julie had the fish and chips.
Very delicious.
Classic.
We had beer and Jameson again.
I can't remember, in Ireland, do they do the smashed peas with the fish and chips, like in Scotland and England?
I didn't see them.
I saw mushy peas or
Yeah, mushy peas, not
menu at
smashed peas.
different places, but it never was an automatic. I mean, I
Huh.
tried to get like sides of vegetables when I could, and they were always whole, fresh little garden peas. They weren't smashed or mushy or
Yeah.
because I wondered that too. I said, well, I'll try that if I see it, but I didn't see that at any breakfast buffets or anything like that either.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It might have been on a side menu or something like that. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't like mushy peas, so I wasn't looking for them. Ew.
Ew.
I like them.
So that's the end of our second day in Dublin. Now, at this point, Julie and I have had to go rent a car and head across the country
For
for a grand adventure.
Yes.
That we'll talk about in our next podcast.
the grand tour.
The grand tour. But then once our grand tour was back, we came back to Dublin and we spent a third day there. So our third day in Dublin for Julie was a half a day because we were coming back from Galway and we arrived about midday back in Dublin. And the one thing that we had missed the 2 days that we were there was we wanted to see the Museum of Ireland, the Archaeology Museum, which I highly recommend.
Mm-hmm. It was
Totally.
beautiful.
It really was. It was incredible. It gave a great national history of Ireland. It's funny because their history really only starts with the Vikings. Since we've been here in Portugal, their history goes back way before Rome. I mean, Lisbon is older than Rome, apparently. But in Ireland, we started with the Vikings, which I think I was maybe about 800 AD or something like that. And so that's where a lot of the history was. But we got to see a great many of Viking relics. We spent a couple hours looking at Paleolithic things that they found. And I'd say that the coolest part about that museum was the bog people.
Mm-hmm. Bog bodies. And again, it was just like the importance of preservation of a lot of that history, from books to Irish deer skeletons to these bodies. The peat bogs were a very significant part of preserving all of that.
Yeah, they had books on display that had been pulled out of the bog. That was a really neat museum. I enjoyed going through there. It took us about a couple hours, and I don't know if we saw it all. I think at one point we were kind of tired and we had enough. That was something I would recommend anybody go see. And they also have another museum that we missed in Ireland that is called the Dead Museum. And they have a lot of things that have been preserved in bogs at that museum too. By the way, it's closed right now. I walked by it my last day there and noticed that it was closed for renovations or something. So check into that if you're going. Yeah. But we did that. And then
before you move on from that, Julie, what did you think of the building it was in?
That museum was fantastic. It was open, and yet there were little side rooms. It felt a lot like an atrium in the middle, and it felt great.
The tile floors are incredible.
The grates. I took pictures of the floor because I thought they were so beautiful, and just the architecture, the arches over into every exhibit room was neat, and there were tile paintings and mural types of things on the floors. That's probably not exactly what I want to say about it, but they were beautiful.
Yeah, it's a nice building.
Beautiful building.
And then once we had finished that, we were exhausted and we wanted to eat. And I think it took us a few minutes to figure it out, but did you know that Ireland has some of the best Indian food ever?
I had heard that before, and I think we need to eat Indian at least once every other day when we go back.
That is a possibility. Yeah, we walked back into the city center, and well, actually, I think we took a taxi at that point. We were exhausted. It was just too much. And we ate, I can't remember the name of the restaurant, though, but I will put it in the show notes.
And you gave a review as well. So you did give them a shout out.
I did write them a Google review because that's how good I thought they were. And so we went out for Indian food. We had some of the best butter chicken I've ever had in my life.
Yes.
And it was nice and spicy too. And it wasn't like over, like couldn't eat it spicy. It was just barely make your nose run spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think we crashed after we ate. We had full bellies and we were off to lay down in the well lit room because it was only like 8:30 at night or something.
Well, you guys had to pack and leave the next day.
Yeah. And driving when you're not used to driving on the right side of the car, on the left side of the highway, it can get a little stressful. So
Yeah, and you'd had several days of that. So
Yeah,
no
we had
wonder
to
you were tired.
pull back into drop the car off and stuff. So we were exhausted. So it was time to just call it a day. And Julie had to get up the next morning and leave.
Yeah. But we did find a cool TV channel that was all Irish, all
Yes.
Irish language, all Irish. We watched Gaelic football, which was
Ooh.
that was pretty cool. It's like a cross between soccer and rugby and football all at the same time.
It was strange.
Yeah, you can kick it, you can throw the ball, you can run with the ball, but
You can bounce the ball.
you can get points by either getting the ball in the goal, like a soccer goal, or kicking it over the goal, which
Yeah,
was
between the goalposts.
Oh.
It was weird.
And I believe that's the only place that specific game is played is in Ireland.
It may be. And it was completely in Irish the whole time they were commentating on it.
I believe you mean Gaelic.
Gaelic.
No, I think it is Irish, actually. We might need to look that up right quick. But I think, I think it was Irish spoken here, not Gaelic. It's a form of Gaelic, but not.
Oh,
actual
okay.
Yeah. The whole thing was done in Irish, so we didn't understand a word of what was going on.
Yeah.
But it was very cool.
Yeah, it was Dublin versus Galway. So we were like, this is very local. And we did some quick searching to find out what it was. And we're like, it's only played in that localized area. I don't believe there are like pro teams. I think it's all, I don't know if it's called an amateur league or something. But yeah, pretty cool.
I think it was an amateur league. Yeah.
And you're right, they do officially call it Irish.
Cool.
It's very closely associated with Gaelic, but Gaelic is more commonly in Scottish. Is Scottish Gaelic. Yeah.
Okay. All of the road signs and all the placards in any museum that we went in were Irish first and then English, which was cool.
Yeah, road signs, everything.
Yeah, I think that's a law because they are trying to preserve the Irish language.
Good.
And when we were in Dingle and they were doing the sheep herding thing, the guy came up to talk to the farmer, the sheep herder, and they were speaking in Irish.
Oh, cool.
Kind of cool.
Nice.
So, yeah. After Julie left on the next day, because you had to be at the airport at noon, I didn't have to be at the airport until like maybe 4 p.m. So I had some time. So I stored my luggage at the hotel, and then I went back around to this little place called the Little Museum of Dublin. I kind of did a search somewhere that said, okay, if you've done all the major things in Dublin, where's somewhere that's kind of second tier that, not many people do? Now, granted, this tour was advertised on the Hop On, Hop Off bus, so I'm not certain it's a second tier kind of tourist place, but I was able to walk right up, get a ticket, and be in the next tour within 10 minutes.
Nice.
Now, it's a small museum. It's like one room, and from what I understand, it's now a pop-up museum because they're renovating their other one.
Oh.
But you go in and they have all of these relics all over the wall. The walls are covered in them. And you have this one guy, and they close the shop down. They close it so nobody can walk in while you're having the tour. And this guy just basically spends 30 minutes telling you about the history of Dublin.
Wow.
Neat.
I highly recommend that. It was cute. It was €15 for 30 minutes. And he put on a show, and I learned a little bit more than I had learned the entire time we were there.
Wow.
That might be a good place to start.
It might be, yeah, actually. 30 minutes quick, it gets you in and out, and you get a good, well-rounded idea of what went on. And they talk about the revolution, they talk about Vikings, they talk about the different authors. I mean, everything that we
so they kind of cover it all.
They cover it all. And then I went down to O'Donnell's Bar.
No, you went to Bewley's.
I did good. I went to Bewley's first and had some tea and what do you call that? A pastry?
Yeah.
Because I was hungry, number one. But people had recommended, Sheila had said, go to Bewley's, have some tea or coffee, and look out over the terrace. And I didn't get a seat on the terrace. They were a little bit busy, but they set me inside, and it was cool. But it was, I'm going to say, overpriced tea and bun because it's right there on that tourist drag on Grafton Street. And it's a famous place.
So it got popular.
So it got really popular, and therefore, everybody was in there. And you can go and eat lunch, but I wasn't that hungry.
So then you had a pint where?
O'Donna's Bar?
Ah.
I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly.
O'Donna. That's probably right.
O'Donna. O'Donna's Bar is apparently an icon there too, where it was one of the oldest pubs. It was pretty cool. I had a pint of Guinness. Sat outside, nice ambiance, drank it, walked off. That was it.
Good.
Just like everybody else. Drank, left. That was it.
Okay.
And then I headed to the airport right after that, I think, because I was trying to keep an eye on the time, trying to figure out how much time I, could afford myself before having to be in a very busy airport.
And I wasn't there to tell you.
Yeah, and I had to keep up with my passport and everything. God. Not doing that anymore.
Life's rough.
It's hard. Julie, what was your favorite part about Dublin?
The whole vibe was really joyful, the pub life. People just seemed happy. They've got something in their hand, they're drinking. Everybody seemed pretty happy. The buskers on the street were really cool, and they were all ages. Trinity College, of course, was very much a highlight. The Indian food, I had not had Indian food in a long time, and it was superb. The 80s pop music in the taxis was a surprise.
We are officially old enough that our music is coming back and it's popular.
And we're in the back singing every line, and one of the taxi drivers said, "You know all the words." And we're like, "We lived this. What are you talking about?"
You got good taste in music. We were like, "Yeah, we know." But even in some of the bars, it was the same thing. 80s pop music is back. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow.
It's back. Yay.
Excellent.
I'm happy about it anyway.
Yes. You can go to radio.garden and look up a lot of different radio stations in Ireland if you care to give it a try.
Oh.
Yeah, we did find an 80s pop station in the car.
Oh, yes.
And we have one here in Portugal.
Yeah, we have one here.
Cool. Relive the magic.
Let's see. What was my favorite part about Dublin? I really love the atmosphere of the pubs. We didn't get to hear any live Irish music while we were in Dublin, but we got to hear a little bit when we were out on the countryside. But I liked being able to go in and, the darkness of the pub and the coziness and be able to drink Guinness everywhere I went. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that it's very walkable and easy to get around because I am the navigator, and so that made it easy. The long room at Trinity College was definitely a highlight. Mm-hmm. And the bog people. That was cool.
Yes.
What was your favorite part about Dublin?
Well, kind of all the things you guys have talked about, but one of the other things that you haven't mentioned that Eli and I really enjoyed was looking for all of the statues that have nicknames.
Oh, yeah.
So there's hags with bags, and it's two women with shopping bags and their purses sitting on a bench. That's one of the more famous ones. And they're mostly, I think, done in bronze. There's the tart with a cart that's there. There's the wank at the bank.
What is the wank at the bank?
The wank at the bank is, I can tell you, that is the Oscar Wilde statue. And
at the bank of...
And it's actually down by the water.
He's reclining on that rock or the...
Oh, yeah.
And, James Joyce has a statue, and it's called The Prick with the Stick.
Okay.
And
it's fitting.
I know. So there are several, and I think there's maybe 9 or 10, and I don't think we saw them all, but we enjoyed looking for them while we were in Dublin.
Our bus tour guide pointed out the stiffy at the Liffey.
Oh, yes.
Which was the...
erection at the intersection.
Yeah, the erection at the intersection.
And what was that?
I don't know, it's a monument to somebody, but
Oh.
it's a pointy monument.
Ah.
Kind of,
All right.
how monoliths are, they're pointy.
One of the things that I really love about Ireland in general, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, is peat. I love the way they still traditionally go out and cut it. And they cut it into basically, it looks like bricks. And then they let it dry. And then they go back and get it. And then they use it in their fireplaces. And the smell of burning peat to me is just incredible. It's such a good smell. And so I really like peat and the peat bogs.
I like the way it smells of my Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
But that's not Irish, that's Scottish. So.
That's Scottish. Shame on you. We're talking about Ireland. So, and then one of the other things that you guys wanted, or you wanted me to mention, is when Eli, who is my son, by the way, when we went, we stayed in Inchicore. Inchicore, which is just a suburb, but we stayed out there because it was so much cheaper. I didn't know about Premier Inn then. We stayed out there in a Airbnb, and we took the tram in every day, and it was probably to the middle of town, 30 minutes or so, but the trains are so nice, and they're really regular, and there was a stop called Black Horse that was right by us, so we got on there every day. The total bonus of doing that was I discovered a brewery out there. Shout out to Rascals Brewing in Inchicore. You should, literally, I will take the tram out there just to go there. They have incredible beer, but they have the best stout I have ever tasted in my life.
Don't say that about Guinness.
Well, Guinness is technically kind of a light stout. It's not a real chewy stout. This is a real darker and chewier, if you will. I highly recommend it. They have all kinds. They have incredible IPAs and all kinds of other things. So that was definitely a highlight.
Woohoo! Rascals.
Rascals Brewing in Inchicore.
Cool.
Yeah.
What did we not do that we want to do next time? I want to do the pub crawl, the literary pub crawl, where I learn where all the authors drank.
Yeah, that's supposed to be really good.
I think that would be cool. And everybody says do the Guinness tour, but when I read about it, it's like a self-guided tour that you go through where they tell you the history of Guinness and everything, and then they teach you how to pour your own Guinness, and then you get to drink it while you're there. And except for maybe the view of the city, because the bar was way up above the city on a hill, I'm like, I can get Guinness in any other bar in town. Why would I pay $25 to go up there and get a Guinness? So anybody out there been on the Guinness tour and tell me that it's worth it, let me know.
I haven't done it either. I think that it is probably one of the most touristy things in Ireland. So if you're there pretty much anytime except January, then I'd be prepared for crowds.
What do you want to do that you didn't do this time, Julie?
Gosh, I would like to do the literary crawl as well. I think that was really fun, and that was one thing that stood out. It's really clear how the Irish culture really thrives and appreciates the arts and culture and writing and dancing and music. That was a really cool thing to be able to absorb while there. You mentioned a dead museum?
Yeah.
That might be fun.
Yeah, that might be fun.
Also, if you like, masterpieces like Rembrandt's and such, you should go to the National Gallery of Art, because I have been and it's incredible. It's really a good one. And it's not overwhelming like the Louvre, for example, but it is a really nice museum. Going back to Guinness for just a minute, fun fact, Arthur Guinness signed a 9,000-year lease.
Yeah, we learned about that on the Hop On Hop Off bus. Yeah.
And it was £100 up front, which in 1759 would have been a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then it cost him an annual rent of £45 for this 4 acres. That's what they still pay.
They still pay that?
They still pay For 9,000 years, they pay £45 a year. But of course, it is bringing so much business into the town that I'm sure that, they're going, good deal.
Anything you did not like about Dublin?
It was a big city feeling. So, I mean, when we were out of the city center, you could sense the traffic was intense and narrow roads, and I guess a lot of tourists driving around not knowing how to merge into traffic, etc. But traffic seemed to be, and when I looked at some of the thoughts about Ireland, because I literally looked up what's not like about Dublin. And they mentioned maybe sometimes some of the public transportation wasn't as reliable as they wanted it to be, but I didn't go on that, so I don't know. It's an old city. It feels like an old city, but I didn't get the sense that it was run down or antiquated in that way. So
Yeah.
I had a positive experience.
It didn't feel as old to me as some of the cities we've been in.
Mm-mm.
So,
and I think part of that is because it doesn't generally have tiny little streets when you're downtown.
That's true.
Because you're kind of centered around the river.
Yeah.
That comes through. And so on either side of that, it's nice and broad. And I think it's not so closed in.
Yeah.
And that makes it feel not as old.
Yeah, I think the streets are much wider, and that's a telltale sign of a more modern city.
Well, Dublin is definitely more expensive than when you get out.
The rest of the of the cities that we've been in. I would say that's probably true.
But not horrifically.
No.
Mm-mm.
And I expected to pay a lot more for a pint of beer than I did. I was thinking I was going to end up paying €8-9 for a pint of Guinness, and I think the most I paid was $7.50, and that was in the hotel lobby.
No.
Everything else was somewhere around $7 or $6.50, and I mean I buy Guinness down at the bar in Abidush, and it's €6 here.
Yeah.
And everybody says that's expensive, and I was like, for a Guinness? But now I'm like, that's expensive. So,
well, it's not like they just roll the barrel down the street.
No, they have to float it.
Yeah.
In the Atlantic. We trade port for Guinness.
That's right.
All right. Anything else? I think that does it for Dublin, or our general opinions on Dublin and things that we recommend.
Anything else, Julie?
It was a wonderful time to see Shelley. We had not seen each other in over 6 months, and it was the first of hopefully more BFF's trips, because that was something that we have never done, really. Maybe once before you moved, we went to the beach, but that's the first trip we've ever just you and me gone.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was super fun. So that aspect was really great. And flying on Iceland Air was a breeze. Just shout out there. It was the fastest. I got to Dublin from Raleigh, 10 hours and 15 minutes.
Not too bad.
Yeah. I like Iceland Air. I've flown it
Because
before.
it was a stopover in Iceland, so.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, it's
Easy.
good.
All right, cool.
What about you, Shelley? What was your favorite?
What did I not?
Any extra?
I'm glad I didn't have to drive in Dublin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really much enjoyed this trip. It was the first time that Julie and I had been out by ourselves, and it was a good time to catch up and hang out and
You can go.
get big hugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can go to America and visit her and do a BFF trip from there.
America. Not many people in the world would be worth it, but Julie would.
Oh.
Oh, I know that. I do not take that lightly. That's significant. Thank you. Yes.
All right.
Places to.
So our next podcast that we will do will be about the other part of Ireland that we visited, Dingle and Galway, in between our Dublin trip. So that will be coming up soon. And then we have some visitors coming to town. Katie's coming. Hi, Katie. And we will be going to Scotland in August. The medieval festivals are coming up in July.
Mhm.
So we've got a lot going on, don't we?
And we do. And we just had some visitors our
that's right.
our friends Margaret, Katie, and Anna.
Hi,
guys.
Katie and Anna.
And that was big fun.
Yes.
Yeah, they did a Lisbon and Porto at the beginning and the end, and came and saw us in between, and that was really great.
Yes.
That was really fun.
So, all right. Well, I think that's it.
I think it is.
Okay. So
Thank
hit that subscribe button.
Thank you, Julie. You were our first ever guest on a podcast.
Yes, first ever.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Glad to be here.
I hope this thing works out. We don't have to do it again. No, I mean, like, have to re-record this whole episode. We'll do it again.
Do it.
And all right, so if that's it, I guess I will say boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you would like to reach out to us or ask questions, you can find us on our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can also follow us at our website, www.forus.com. That's www.forus.com. Hope to hear from you soon. Obrigada!